On a small farm in Finland lived a boy and his dad. And they had 2 cows, a scrawny cow, whose name I do not know, and a nice plump young cow called Kylikki. But one year, the winter was long and cold and bitter. And the following summer was short and soggy. And they didn't manage to harvest enough hay to keep both cows through the next winter. And the father said to his son, "We're going to have to sell one of the cows, otherwise they'll both starve." And the son hoped that they would get rid of the scrawny one because Kylikki was his favourite cow. But it was Kylikki that he had to get ready and lead into market. He was really too young for such a job. He was unused to the wiles of the world. And when he got into market, there were a couple of scoundrels, or as the Finns call them, dog's teeth, who were waiting for prey like him. And as he led the cow in, they said, wouldn't give much chance for that scrawny goat to get sold. And Pekka thought, this is a cow, not a goat. But they nipped round the back of a building and they changed their jackets inside out. They put on different hats. And again, they came past and said, those scrawny goats, they get scrawnier every time I come to market. And they did that all the way through the morning. And by midday, Pekka was so confused that he started to believe that Kylikki was actually not a cow at all, but a goat. And he ended up selling her to these 2 scoundrels for the price of a goat. And it wasn't until he had the money in his hand that he started to be dimly aware that something was wrong. He followed them as they led her round the corner, and he watched as they sold her again for a much higher sum, the price of a cow. And he realised he'd been diddled. What was he going to do about it? It wasn't a big town, but it wasn't a tiny village either. It had 4 pubs. And Pekka took the money and he went to the first pub, had a quiet word with the landlord, a few coins changed hands. He went to the second pub, another quiet word with the landlords and a few coins changed hands. The third pub, likewise. And then he went in search of those 2 dog's teeth. He found them, celebrating, and he said, "Come with me." He greeted them like long lost brothers. He said, "I want to treat you. You have given me such a good price for my goat. I want to take you out for dinner. On me." And the 2 scoundrels thought, there's one born every minute. We've diddled him and he wants to buy us dinner. Well, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, particularly, well. So they went with him and they went to the first pub, and it was a slap-up dinner. It was steak and lobster and a fine bottle of Merlot. And just as they were getting a little bit replete, he said, "We'll go somewhere else for pudding." And the landlord came over all kind of oily and obsequious with a stained apron. And Pekka took off his hat, the hat with the long feather, and he twirled it round so that the feather flashed in the candlelight. And he said, "Landlord, is everything paid for?" And the landlord said, "Oh, yes, sir." Everything's paid for. And the 3 of them went off to the next pub. Well, the next pub was pudding. They have this fantastic pudding up there. You get these apples and you dip them in batter and fry them. So they're like ring donuts, but they're full of apple. And you pile those on your plate with ice cream and stewed raspberry sauce and more cream and chopped nuts and chocolate sprinkles. It's a massive heart-attack inducing pudding, and it's great. And so they had that with maybe, let's have some Sauterne or a Chateau Yquem or something. And they necked that down. And just as it was getting to the end of that course, the landlord came over and the boy took his hat again. And he said, "Landlord, is everything paid for?" And the landlord said, "Oh, yes, sir, everything's paid for." And off they went. Well, the 2 dog's teeth had been watching this, and they'd spotted that twice he'd been in a pub and he got away without paying, and they wanted to know the secret. So they got him up against the wall of that same pub. "Come on, tell us, how do you get away without buying any of this food? We've had this lovely dinner, thanks. How do you do it?" And he said, "Oh, it's my magic hat. I take it off, I twirl it, And it hypnotises the landlords. They always give me free food and drink. Well, the two dogs' teeth thought, this is amazing. We want the hat. They wanted it so much. They would pay any price. 50 gold pieces, 100 gold. Come on, give us the hat. And he said, no, I can't do that. This hat is my bread and butter. It's my steak and chips as well. I'll tell you what though. We'll go to a third place. We'll have a cheese board in the third pub. So they went to the cheese board. At the third pub, they had, the squidgy one, the blue one, the one that's slightly nutty. They had the grapes. They had the chutney. They had the quince jam. They had the port. They had the brandy. And they were, by this time, fairly well oiled. Again, the pub landlord came over. Again, the boy, is everything paid for? Oh, yes, sir, everything's paid for. This time, when they left the pub, the two dogs' teeth were not going to take no for an answer. They said, please, come on, we'll pay anything you want. This fantastic hat. They took out their gold. They took out their silver. He said, it's not enough. They took off their fob watches. They took off their rings. And he said, I don't know, I still won't have a hat. They took off their silk top hats, put one inside the other, piled in the gold, the silver, the watches. And he said, I suppose so. I'm cutting my own throat here, though. And they said, thank you so much. And they scampered off with his magic hat. And he took their hats back to his farm. Well, of course, they wanted to try it out, so they went to the fourth pub. Fourth pub. Time for a whiskey tasting session. So they got the cut glasses out, They poured in a little of the Islay, the smoky one that goes up the back of your nose. They poured in the one that's matured in a sherry cask and has got the fruity notes. They poured in the ones with different mineralisations from different types of granite and basalt, and they got steadily more and more sozzled. And when the landlord came over, because they'd had quite a bit of whiskey parties, quite a little bit of whiskey, between friends. And they said, I don't want to say, I'm going to do it first. They took the hat. Landlord, is everything paid for? And the landlord said, no, it flipping well isn't. And he took them outside, and he did unto them the things that pub landlords do unto those who cannot pay their bills. They were doing the washing up for a fortnight. But the boy had scampered back home with a hat full of gold and silver and 2 ticking watches. And he showed his winnings to his dad. And his dad looked at it and he said, I'm confused, son. Did you get all this for selling our Kylikki? And the boy said, yes, Dad. But I had to sell my hat as well.